It's no secret that I like retro-style platformers. In fact, even mentioning it seems redundant at this point. While my love for the genre was spawned in the 90s when I was just a kid, the title that revived that love was none other than Shovel Knight. The original title itself was without a doubt my favorite game of 2014, and its follow-up DLC, Plague of Shadows, was my game of the year for 2015. Accordingly, I've been waiting as patiently as I could for the release of the next installment, Specter of Torment. Now, Specter Knight is my favorite of all of the knights in the Order of No Quarter. I love his stage in the base game, and I think he's just plain cool looking. I mean, come on, he's got a scythe. It's for this reason that I was excited, but also terrified for Specter of Torment to finally release. While Plague of Shadows didn't feel rehashed or unoriginal in any way, I was worried that the second time around, some of that magic might finally start to lose its shine. Thankfully, I was wrong. Specter of Torment acts as a prequel to the base game, taking you back to a time when good old Specter Knight was the sole servant to the Enchantress just after her rise to power. As her only follower, Specter Knight is given the task of visiting the other knights in the kingdom and convincing them to join the Enchantress in what is to become the Order of No Quarter. But as anyone who is familiar with the Shovel Knight series so far knows, a deeper, more stirring layer of the story awaits. This second layer is presented in the form of flashbacks. These sepia-toned scenes take you back to before Specter Knight became a phantom in the Order, and was just a man on a quest to retrieve an amulet from the Tower of Fate. Occurring every so often, similar to the dream sequences in the original, these glimpses into Specter Knight's past not only do an excellent job providing his backstory, they also manage to tie in some characters who previously seemed unimportant. I won't spoil it, but these flashbacks were hands down my favorite sequences in the game. As you'd expect with a Shovel Knight entry, the controls are nearly perfect. Everything feels tight and responsive, and Specter Knight's wall running makes for a fun way to navigate some of the more familiar sections of each stage. While I did get the hang of Plague Knight in Plague of Shadows, it seems a common complaint was that his mechanics were simply difficult to get used to. I didn't run into this problem with Specter Knight and had mostly gotten the hang of the controls by the end of the first stage. Both the combat and the general movement are extremely satisfying. And remember the scythe I mentioned earlier? You get to ride it as a snowboard. It's rad. Rather than having an overworld like the two previous entries, Specter of Torment instead utilizes the Tower of Fate as a hub where you can purchase upgrades in the form of curios, find hidden items, and teleport to each stage. I was a big fan of the overworld in Shovel Knight, and when I realized it wasn't in Specter of Torment, I thought I'd be a bit let down, but ultimately I didn't end up missing it. You're also given the option to purchase health and magic, or darkness, upgrades in this hub, just in case you miss them throughout each level. They're not cheap though, so you really need to weigh if going for those hidden upgrades is worth the money you may lose in your failed attempts, or if you'd rather just save what you can and purchase them later. It's a nice way to change things up. Despite all the praise I could give this game, it's definitely not without some issues. One big thing I can see people taking issue with is that Shovel Knight himself is completely absent from the game, with the Black Knight instead taking the role as your nemesis throughout the plot. I was only slightly let down by this, but I enjoyed his appearance in Plague of Shadows and wouldn't have minded if he showed up, even in just a scene. Secondly, the auto-scrolling sections of the game seem to be paced somewhat awkwardly. In both Propeller Knight and Tinker Knight stages, I found myself having to hop in place to wait for the screen to catch up to me so that I could actually progress. Again though, not anything that ruined my experience. Lastly, the final boss of the two previous entries had a certain level of challenge to them that felt somewhat absent from the final boss in Specter of Torment. While this boss fight was some of the most fun I had throughout the game, it didn't feel challenging the way a final boss should. That said, I'm not exactly eager to go through and try it again on New Game Plus, so I should probably stop talking. Ultimately, Specter of Torment succeeds in providing a fresh experience without straying from the world of Shovel Knight. The stages and boss fights have been reworked to fit the new mechanics, the music has all been remixed to add to this new spin on things, and the story itself, though simple, adds even more character to the universe. Yacht Club has proven once again that they know how to shake things up just enough to provide an experience that doesn't come across as a stale cop-out, without stepping too far away from their tried-and-true formula, earning Specter of Torment 4.5 Scythe snowboards out of 5. For more reviews on video games and hardware alike, as well as first looks, editorials, and build guides, be sure to head on over to KBMOD.com.